Someone you love sends a kind message. You see it, feel something warm, and place the phone face down. Hours become days. The strange part is that your silence does not feel like rejection. It feels like shelter. From the other side, it looks cold. You stopped replying. You declined the invitation. You became difficult to reach. People naturally assume your distance says something about them because they cannot feel the noise inside you. But some people withdraw most sharply from the people they care about most. Not because the love disappeared. Sometimes closeness creates more emotional input, more responsibility, and more fear of giving a tired version of yourself. That creates an important question. When is pulling away a healthy return to yourself? And when is it becoming a hiding place? The real cost appears later, in what the silence slowly does to your choices. The title is a little misleading, on purpose. People rarely withdraw from everyone in the same way. They withdraw from the demands, performances, decisions, and tiny negotiations that arrive whenever another person enters the room. For a socially saturated mind, interaction can feel like keeping too many tabs open. One tracks the conversation, one reads the mood, one edits the next sentence, another quietly checks whether anyone seems disappointed. The effort stays invisible because it often looks like kindness. You seem attentive, you remember details, you notice the pause before a friend says they are fine. People see warmth, but they do not see the energy meter falling behind it. But socially capable people can still become socially exhausted. A smooth conversation proves that you performed the conversation. It does not reveal what the performance cost or how long your mind will keep processing it afterward. Sometimes the tiredness arrives late. You were fine at dinner. You laughed in the car. Then you reached home and even a loving phone call felt impossible. The bill arrived after the social moment had already ended. This delayed exhaustion can confuse you because it arrives after a good time, not a bad one. You may judge yourself for needing recovery from people you genuinely enjoyed. But enjoyment does not cancel effort. A meaningful evening can be both nourishing and expensive. Alone time lowers the number of things asking for a response. Nobody needs an expression. No sentence must be timed. No mood must be interpreted. The room stops requesting little pieces of you, and your attention can finally return home. Sometimes the first hour alone is not peaceful at all. You pace. You replay one sentence. You open the refrigerator without wanting anything. The quiet is not failing. Your attention may simply be slowing down after spending hours pointed outward. Chosen solitude can feel peaceful because it restores a sense of choice. You decide what enters your attention. You decide whether the room is silent. That small return of control can be more soothing than any perfectly planned self-care routine. This is why needing distance is not automatically a verdict on the relationship. The person may be wonderful. The conversation may be safe. Your system can still be full. Affection and capacity are related, but they are not the same thing. Capacity also changes. The call you welcomed last Tuesday may feel impossible after a deadline, a noisy commute, or a family obligation. That inconsistency can look personal from outside. Inside, it may be the difference between having one empty chair and having none. But withdrawal can also become a boundary made without words. You kept agreeing when you were tired. You answered when you needed quiet. You stayed longer than your body wanted. Eventually, disappearance became the only no that felt strong enough. When small limits are repeatedly ignored, people often reach for larger exits. A delayed reply becomes a weak. Leaving early becomes not going. The nervous system learns that subtle boundaries do not work, so it chooses absence. Explaining the need for space can feel like another social task. You must choose the right tone, prevent misunderstanding, offer reassurance, and perhaps defend a need you already feel guilty about. Silence seems cheaper in the moment. Guilt can make a simple reply feel larger every day. At first, you only need to say you are tired. 3 days later,
It feels as if you must explain the silence, repair the worry, and prove that you still care. Delay quietly raises the emotional price of returning, yet the silence transfers the uncertainty. What gave you relief may give someone else a room full of unanswered questions.
They may wonder whether they offended you, whether you are safe, or whether the relationship ended without a conversation. Silence rarely stays empty for the person waiting. They fill it with the explanation they fear most. Meanwhile, you may be imagining that any reply will disappoint them. Two people can care deeply while each reacts to a story the other person never actually told. But not every relationship costs the same amount of energy. Around some people, you monitor every pause. Around others, silence is allowed. You can share a room without producing a brighter, funnier, more available version of yourself. Safe connection often leaves room for autonomy. You can say no without a trial. You can pause before answering. You can leave early without performing an apology. Space does not threaten the bond, so you need less distance to protect yourself. For some people, the easiest connection is side by side rather than face to face. Folding laundry, driving somewhere, or reading in the same room can offer closeness without constant performance. Nothing is wrong with a bond that needs less talking to feel real. This can be hard for loving people to accept. Love feels like availability. But unlimited access is not the same as intimacy. Intimacy can include a closed door, an unanswered evening, and trust that neither one means abandonment. For some quiet adults, the pattern began long before phones and calendars. Home taught them that being available kept things calm. They listened early, adapted quickly, and learned to notice everyone else's needs before their own. The reliable person often receives more requests because they rarely show the cost. They become the one who listens, fixes, remembers, and responds. Then, one day, they vanish, surprising everyone except the exhausted person who had been disappearing internally for months. But modern reachability removes the natural ending from social contact. A gathering used to end when you went home. Now the group chat follows you onto the couch, the work thread enters dinner, and every notification opens another social door. This creates a confusing habit. You avoid replying because conversation feels demanding, then scroll for an hour because scrolling asks nothing back. It resembles connection without requiring participation, but the mind may finish more crowded than before. The room is quiet, yet your attention is still being touched every second. Faces and headlines keep arriving. So do opinions, jokes, warnings, and tiny invitations to react. Physical solitude is not always psychological solitude. You can also turn alone time into another performance. The room is finally yours, but you fill it with chores, podcasts, scrolling, and plans to become a better person by bedtime. Recovery becomes one more assignment. Quiet helps most when something is allowed to remain unfinished. Restorative alone time usually contains less input, not merely fewer people. The phone dims, the body slows. Attention stops bouncing between other people's signals and returns to one ordinary thing: washing a cup, opening a window, finishing a thought. After a crowded day, the world can remain inside you like an afterimage. Voices repeat, expressions replay, small moments return for inspection. Nothing dramatic happened, yet your mind keeps sorting the social room after your body left it. That is why a gentle invitation can feel loud at the wrong moment. The invitation is not the problem. It lands on a system that has not finished the previous conversation. A small request reaches a room with no empty chair. Withdrawal solves something immediately. It stops new input. It prevents another performance. It protects the tired version of you from being seen or misunderstood. That immediate relief is real, which is exactly why the pattern can become difficult to notice. But protection can slowly become a smaller life. The more contact you avoid, the heavier the next contact may feel. Invitations begin to carry accumulated guilt. Returning requires an explanation, so you delay again. Then, a loop can form. You withdraw because you have little capacity. You stay away because you feel guilty about withdrawing. The guilt consumes more capacity, so returning feels harder. What began as recovery starts demanding the very energy it was supposed to restore. This is the distinction the title hides. One silence gives you back to yourself. The other helps you avoid yourself and everyone who might reach you. They can look identical from outside, but they leave different evidence inside. Restorative solitude has movement in it. Your shoulders lower. Curiosity returns. A neglected task becomes possible. Eventually, you want some form of connection again, even if it is smaller, slower, and more selective than other people prefer. Isolating withdrawal often feels different. Rest does not restore interest. The unopened messages become heavier. You feel relief when plans disappear, but dread when you imagine returning. The silence protects you while also making the world feel less reachable. A gentle first step is to name the season accurately. You may be socially full, digitally saturated, resentful from weak boundaries, or afraid of a conversation. Different causes need different kinds of space. Vague disappearance treats them all the same. Instead of asking whether you deserve to be alone, ask what the quiet is doing. Are you becoming more patient, more curious, and more able to choose? Or are you rehearsing explanations, avoiding one specific truth, and watching the doorway feel farther away? The result matters more than the number of hours. Connection does not have to mean a crowded evening or a long call. A quiet walk, one shared errand, or 10 honest minutes may preserve the bond without overwhelming your remaining capacity. Smaller is not less sincere. When words are available, a small bridge can prevent days of confusion. You can say that you care. Your social battery is empty, and you will return after some quiet. It does not need to become a courtroom defense of your needs. The bridge can be one sentence. I care about you, and I am out of social energy tonight. Or, I saw your message. I am taking quiet time, and I will answer Saturday. Clear does not have to mean long. Reassurance and a return point are often enough. A boundary feels safer to both people when it includes a return path. Tomorrow evening, this weekend, after the deadline. Specific does not mean rigid. It tells the relationship that your silence has an edge, not an endless horizon. The deeper change is earlier. Leave before resentment. Mute before overload. Decline one plan instead of disappearing from 5 people. A life with planned quiet needs fewer emergency exits. Predictable quiet can also make relationships easier. A slow Sunday morning, an evening without calls, or 20 minutes after work gives recovery a place on the calendar before exhaustion chooses for you. People may adapt more easily to a rhythm than to repeated, unexplained disappearances. If you love someone who withdraws, pressure usually adds another demand to the pile. A steadier response offers space without vanishing in return. One calm message can hold both truths. I am here, and you do not have to perform right now. The goal is not constant availability. It is chosen connection. You should be able to close the door without losing the relationship, and open it again without carrying a week of shame through the doorway. So quiet withdrawal does not always mean less love. Sometimes it is what happens when love meets an exhausted capacity, an unspoken boundary, or a mind still crowded by the day. The distance may be asking for recovery, not an ending. But the real cost appears in what happens next. Peace gives you more room to choose. Hiding makes every choice feel farther away. The silence is serving you when it helps you return as yourself, not when it convinces you never to return. The next time you place the phone face down, notice what you are protecting. It may be your attention, your boundary, or a tired heart. Then notice whether the quiet makes returning easier. That difference changes everything.